In 2017, a lightning strike knocked down an ancient tree in North Cascades and revealed a cave entrance that had been hidden for decades. Inside, 7 sets of footprints led into the darkness, but none came back out. The footprints weren't panicked or scattered. They were steady, deliberate, walking single file deeper into the cave. And according to the forensic team, the last set of prints stopped at a point where the ceiling dropped to just 3 feet high. October 12th, 2014. 7 people gathered in the parking lot of North Cascades National Park at dawn. They weren't tourists. They weren't casual weekend hikers. They were experienced wilderness athletes. People who'd summited peaks across 3 continents, who understood mountain weather and terrain, who knew how to read a map and trust their instinct. Marcus Chen, 39, was the unofficial leader. He'd climbed Denali twice, had led wilderness expeditions in Patagonia, and worked as a search and rescue volunteer for King County. If anyone knew the mountains, it was Marcus. Sarah Whitmore, 34, was a biology professor specializing in alpine ecosystems. She'd published papers on high-altitude plant adaptation and spent every summer doing field research above the tree line. The mountains weren't just her hobby, they were her life's work. David and Jennifer Kowalski, both 31, were married, inseparable, and absolutely fearless. They'd met rock climbing in Yosemite 5 years earlier. They did everything together: ice climbing, backcountry skiing, mountain biking. This trip was supposed to be their anniversary celebration. Amelia Torres, 28, was the youngest, but possibly the most experienced. She'd grown up in the Cascades, her father a park ranger, her childhood spent on trails most people never even heard of. She knew these mountains the way some people know city streets. Robert Bear Sullivan, 36, got his nickname from his size, 6'4", 240 pounds of solid muscle. He was a firefighter, a former Marine, someone who'd walked into burning buildings without hesitation. Fear wasn't something Bear understood. And finally, Lisa Zhang, 26, the group's photographer and documentarian. She'd been filming wilderness expeditions for National Geographic, PBS, outdoor gear companies. Her camera was always running, always capturing. She wanted to make a career out of showing people the wild places they'd never see themselves. They'd planned this trip for 6 months, 4 days, 3 nights, a loop trail through some of the most remote sections of North Cascades National Park. The plan was ambitious, but manageable for their skill level. 32 miles total, significant elevation gain, 2 high passes, and camping spots they'd carefully selected using topographic maps and GPS coordinate. Radio check every day at 3 p.m., Marcus told the ranger at the station as they signed in. If you don't hear from us, something's wrong. The ranger, a woman in her 50s who'd worked the park for 20 years, nodded. Weather's supposed to hold, but up there, weather can change fast. You got shelter, 3 4-season tents, emergency bivy sacks, full rain gear, David said. We're prepared. The ranger looked at their faces, young and confident, and so certain of their abilities. She'd seen that look before. Sometimes those people came back. Sometimes they didn't. Be safe, she said. They started hiking at 7:30 a.m. The trail was well marked, winding through old-growth forest, massive Douglas firs and western red cedars that had been standing for centuries. The morning air was crisp, autumn colors just starting to show in the underbrush. Perfect hiking weather. For the first 6 hours, everything went exactly according to plan. They made good time, stopped for lunch at a scenic overlook, took photos, laughed, talked about their lives back in civilization. Lisa filmed everything, the group walking in single file, Marcus consulting his GPS, Sarah identifying plant species, Bear making jokes about his pack being heavier than everyone else's combined. By 2:45 p.m., they'd covered almost 10 miles and were approaching their planned camping spot for the first night, a flat area near a creek, sheltered by trees, perfect for setting up tent. They were 15 minutes ahead of schedule. Marcus pulled out the radio to make the 3 p.m. check-in. He extended the antenna, pressed the transmit button. This is Chen Party. Checking in. Day 1. All good. Making camp at coordinate. He stopped mid-sentence. Sarah had grabbed his arm, pointing. 50 yards off the trail, barely visible through the trees, was something that didn't belong. A structure, man-made, old. They approached slowly. It was a small cabin, or what remained of one. Most of the roof had collapsed. The walls were listing dangerously, but the stone foundation was still intact. Moss and vines covered everything, nature slowly reclaiming what humans had built. "That's not on any map," Amelia said, pulling out her topographic chart. "There's no historical structures marked in this area. Looks like it's been here a long time," Jennifer said, peering through the collapsed doorway. 60, 70 years maybe? "Homesteader cabin," Sarah said. "Early 20th century. People tried to settle up here before the park was established. Most failed. The winters are too harsh." Lisa was already filming, walking around the structure, capturing details. "This is incredible. Real forgotten history." Bear pushed against one of the walls, testing its stability. Pretty solid considering. Stone foundation, hand-hewn logs. Whoever built this knew what they were doing. Marcus checked his watch. 2:52 p.m. "We should make that radio call and set up camp. We can explore this more tomorrow." But David had found something. "Hey, look at this." Behind the cabin, partially hidden by a fallen tree, was another structure, smaller, more intact. A shed or storage building, its door still hanging from rusted hinges. "That's in better shape than the cabin," Jennifer noted. They pulled open the door, hinges screaming in protest. Inside was dark, musty, empty, except for some rotted wooden shelves and— "Wait," Amelia said, shining her flashlight along the back wall. "Is that an opening?" They crowded into the small space. The back wall, which should have been solid logs, had a gap. Not damage, but deliberately constructed. A low doorway, maybe 4 feet high, leading into darkness. "That's not part of the shed," Marcus said. "That's going into the hillside." "A root cellar, maybe?" Sarah suggested. "For storing food underground, keeping it cool." Bear ducked through the opening, flashlight sweeping the darkness beyond. "It's not a cellar," he called back, his voice echoing strangely. "It's a tunnel, a natural cave. The cabin builders just built over the entrance. One by one they squeezed through the opening. The space beyond was remarkable. A natural cavern, maybe 15 feet wide, the ceiling high enough to stand in. The walls were rough stone, formed by water over millennia. The air was cool and damp and smelled of earth and minerals. "This is incredible," Sarah breathed. "A limestone cave system, probably connected to the aquifer. These are rare in this region." Lisa's camera light swept across the walls. "Look at the formations. Flowstone, stalactite. This place is pristine." The cave continued deeper, sloping gently downward. They could hear water somewhere in the distance, a faint, dripping echo. The darkness beyond their flashlights was absolute, the kind of black that seems to have weight and texture. "We should document this," David said. "Map it, at least the entrance area. This could be scientifically significant." Marcus checked his watch again. 3:04 p.m. They'd missed the radio check-in. He pulled out his radio, tried to call. Static. The stone walls were blocking the signal. "I'll go back to the surface," he said. "Make the call. Let them know we're okay. The rest of you can start mapping the entrance chamber, but nobody goes deeper without proper caving equipment. Understood?" They agreed. Marcus squeezed back through the doorway, emerged into the shed, stepped outside. The afternoon light seemed too bright after the darkness of the cave. He raised the radio, extended the antenna. Nothing. Still static. He walked toward the trail, trying to get a clear signal. 20 yards, 50 yards, still nothing but white noise. He climbed to a small rise, held the radio above his head. Finally, a crackle. He pressed transmit. "This is Chen Party. The signal died. He tried again. Dead. He checked the battery. Full. He checked the frequency. Correct. But the radio wouldn't transmit, wouldn't receive, just dead air. "Marcus!" Bear's voice, distant but urgent, coming from the direction of the cabin. "Marcus! You need to see this!" He ran back. The others were gathered at the cave entrance, their flashlights pointed into the darkness. As he approached, he saw what had gotten their attention. Footprints in the cave floor, In the fine dust and sediment that had accumulated over years were footprints, recent footprints, multiple sets, leading deeper into the cave. "These are fresh," Amelia said quietly. "Days old. Maybe a week at most." "Hikers?" Jennifer suggested, but Sarah shook her head. "Look at the pattern. 7 distinct tracks, different shoe sizes, different tread patterns. A group, like us." "And they all went in," Bear said, tracing the prints with his flashlight. "But I don't see any coming back out." They stood in silence, processing that. 7 people had entered this cave recently and hadn't returned, or at least hadn't walked back out the entrance. "There could be another exit deeper in," David said. "Cave systems often have multiple openings." "Or they're still in there," Lisa said quietly. "Lost, injured, waiting for help." Marcus felt the weight of decision settling on his shoulders. They were already behind schedule, had missed their radio check-in, and now they were looking at a potential rescue situation. The smart thing would be to hike back to the trail, get to a point where the radio worked, report this to the rangers. But if people were trapped in that cave, injured, running out of time, every hour could matter. "We do a quick reconnaissance," Marcus said finally. "Follow the footprints for 15 minutes. See if we find any sign of these people. If the cave gets dangerous or too complex, we turn back immediately and report to the rangers." "Agreed?" Everyone nodded. They checked their gear, flashlights, spare batteries, first aid kit. Lisa made sure her camera had a fresh battery and plenty of storage. They formed a single file line, Marcus leading, and entered the cave. The ceiling was high here, maybe 12 feet, but the walls narrowed as they progressed, funneling them into a passage about 6 feet wide. The floor was mostly flat, covered in that fine dust that showed the footprints so clearly. 7 set, walking purposefully. No signs of hesitation or confusion. "They knew where they were going," Amelia observed. "Look how straight the line is." The cave sloped downward, gradually but steadily. They'd descended maybe 50 feet in elevation when they reached the first junction. The passage split into 2 branches. The footprints went left, so they went left. The air grew noticeably cooler. Their breath started to fog. The sound of dripping water grew louder, closer, and then they reached the chamber. It opened suddenly, the passage widening into a space maybe 30 feet across and 20 feet high. Their flashlights couldn't illuminate the full extent of it. Shadows and darkness pressed in from all sides. In the center of the chamber was a pool of water, perfectly still, reflecting their lights like black glass, and around the pool, arranged in a circle, were 7 backpacks. They froze. Nobody spoke. The backpacks were modern, expensive, the kind serious hikers use. They sat upright, evenly spaced, as if someone had carefully placed them there. Bear approached one slowly, as if it might disappear if he moved too fast. He knelt beside it, opened the main compartment. Inside was camping gear, sleeping bag, food, water filter, first aid kit, everything you'd need for a multi-day hike. He checked the name tag sewn into the strap. "Rachel Morrison," he read aloud. "Seattle address." Sarah opened another. "Thomas Park," also Seattle. One by one they checked the packs. 7 names, 7 addresses, all from the Seattle area. All the gear was present. Nothing seemed to have been used or removed. It was as if these people had simply set down their packs and walked away. If you're hooked on stories like this that blend real wilderness terror with unbelievable twists, hit that like button and subscribe for more. "Where are they?" Jennifer whispered. The footprints continued past the pool, toward another passage on the far side of the chamber. But now there was something else, marks on the ground near the pool's edge, like something had been dragged through the dust, and the footprints beyond the pool were different, closer together, more erratic. "They were running," Marcus said quietly. Past this point, they were running. "From what?" Lisa asked, her camera light sweeping the darkness. Nobody answered, because there was no good answer. Marcus made a decision. "We're leaving, now. We'll mark this location. Report to the rangers. Let proper cave rescue teams handle this." But as they turned to leave, they realized something was wrong. The passage they'd entered through, the one they'd followed for the last 20 minutes, wasn't there. The wall was solid stone, No openings, no exit, just the chamber and the passage continuing deeper. That's impossible, David said. We just came from there. Amelia pointed to a passage to their right. That's the way we came in. But Marcus shook his head. No, we came from behind us, I'm certain. They argued for 30 seconds before they realized none of them could agree on which passage was the entrance. Their memories didn't match. It was as if the cave had rearranged itself while they weren't looking. Okay, Marcus said, forcing calm into his voice. We follow our own footprints back. Simple. They looked at the floor. Their footprints were clear in the dust, entering the chamber from 3 different directions. That was impossible. They'd entered as a group, single file, but the evidence showed them coming from 3 separate passages. And worse, their footprints also continued deeper into the cave, past the pool, following the path of the 7 who'd come before. We haven't walked that way, Bear said, staring at prints that clearly showed his distinctive boot tread. I haven't been past that pool, but the evidence said otherwise. This doesn't make sense, Sarah said, her scientific mind struggling with data that couldn't be real. Limestone caves don't rearrange themselves. Footprints don't appear in places we haven't walked, unless we're not remembering correctly, Jennifer said quietly. What if we did walk that way? What if we just don't remember? No, Marcus said firmly. We came in one entrance. We walked straight to this chamber. That's what happened. But doubt had entered his voice, because he couldn't explain the footprint. He couldn't explain why they couldn't agree on which passage they'd used. He couldn't explain any of this. Lisa was filming everything, her camera sweeping across the chamber, the backpack, the footprints. We need to document this, she said. Whatever's happening, we need evidence. Amelia was examining the passages more carefully. Wait, she said. All these passages slope downward. Every single one. There's no upward passage. That can't be right, David said. We came down to get here. We need to go up to get out. But Amelia was right. Every visible exit led down, deeper into the cave system. The way out should be up, but there was no up, only down. Then we go down, Marcus said. We follow the passages until we find one that leads up. Cave systems are 3-dimensional. There has to be another route. Nobody had a better idea. They chose the widest passage, the one that looked most traveled, and continued deeper. The footprints, both the original 7 and their own impossible tracks, led the same way. The passage narrowed. The ceiling lowered. Soon they were walking hunched over. Then on hands and knees, the walls pressed close on both sides. Bear, the largest of them, barely fit. His breathing was rapid, fighting claustrophobia. This is too tight, he said. We should go back. But behind them, the passage had narrowed even more. What had been a 4-foot-high tunnel was now barely 2 feet. They couldn't go back. They could only go forward. They crawled, flashlights strapped to their heads, backpacks scraping the ceiling. The stone was cold and rough. Water dripped from above, soaking their clothes. The passage turned, twisted, descended. Minutes felt like hours, and then it opened again. They emerged into another chamber, this one smaller than the last, maybe 10 feet across, the ceiling low. They could touch it while standing, and in this chamber, arranged against the walls, were more items: clothing, boot, water bottles, personal effect. This is from the 7, Sarah said, picking up a fleece jacket. This is what they were wearing, but the items were arranged too neatly, folded, organized, as if someone had carefully collected them, displayed them. And in the center of the chamber, scratched into the stone floor, was a message: "Turn back now." The letters were crude, carved with something sharp. A knife or a rock, recent, desperate. One of the 7 did this, Marcus said. They were warning people. Warning them about what? Lisa asked. The chamber had 2 exits. One continued downward like all the others, but the second led horizontally, and from it came a sound, faint but distinct. Voices, human voices, talking, maybe singing. It was hard to tell at this distance. "Hello?" Marcus called toward the sound. "We're here to help. Can you hear us?" The voices stopped, silent. Then, slowly they started again. But something was wrong with them. The rhythm was off. The cadence was strange. It almost sounded like voices, but not quite, like an imitation of voices. "That's not human," Amelia whispered, but Bear was already moving toward the sound. "Someone's in there. They need help. Bear, wait!" Marcus grabbed his arm, but Bear was too strong, too determined. He pulled free and ducked into the horizontal passage. "Bear!" Jennifer called. "Don't!" He was gone. They could hear him moving through the passage, his boots scraping stone. And then nothing. Silence. They waited, calling his name. 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes. Then they heard him scream. It wasn't a scream of pain. It was worse. It was a scream of absolute terror, of sanity breaking, of something so awful that words couldn't contain it. It lasted 5 seconds, raw and primal, and then it cut off abruptly. "Bear!" David was moving toward the passage, but Marcus held him back. "We don't know what's in there," Marcus said. "We go in blind. We could—" "He's our friend!" David shouted. "We can't just leave him!" But even as he said it, they heard new sounds from the passage. Footsteps coming back. Bear was coming back. His shape appeared in the passage entrance, silhouetted against their flashlight. He stood there, motionless, for a long moment. Then he spoke, and his voice was wrong, flat, empty. "It's beautiful in here," he said. "You should come see. It's beautiful." "Bear," Jennifer said carefully, "what happened? What did you see?" "Nothing happened," Bear said in that terrible flat voice. "Everything's fine. Come see. Come see how beautiful it is." He wasn't blinking. His eyes were open, unmoving, reflecting their lights like an animal's, and his smile was wrong, too wide, too fixed, the expression of someone who'd forgotten how smiling was supposed to work. "That's not Bear," Lisa whispered, and then he lunged. If you're gripped by this wild turn of events, hit that like button and subscribe for more. He moved faster than a man his size should move, hands reaching for Marcus, but David tackled him, sending both of them crashing to the ground. Bear didn't fight like a person fighting. He grabbed and pulled with mindless strength, no technique, no strategy, just raw force. "Go!" Marcus yelled at the others. "Take the other passage! Go!" They ran. Down the only other exit, the one that led deeper into the cave. They could hear Bear behind them, still struggling with David, both of them shouting. Then David's voice, sharp with pain. "Get off me! Get—" And then silence. They ran through twisting passages, the ceiling getting lower with each turn. Soon they were crawling again, desperate, not caring about scraped knees and torn clothing. The stone pressed in from all sides. Amelia was crying. Jennifer was hyperventilating. Marcus kept saying, "Keep moving. Keep moving," like a mantra. They emerged into a third chamber, and this one was different. The walls were covered in carvings, thousands of them, overlapping, scratched into the stone over years, maybe decades, names and dates and messages. They ranged from ancient, 1847, 1903, 1925, to recent, very recent. Rachel Morrison, 2014, God Forgive Me. Thomas Park, 2014, It Showed Me Things. Marcus Chen, 2014, I'm So Sorry. Emma. Marcus stared at his own name, carved in stone, dated 3 days from now. His hand was shaking. "I didn't write that," he said. "I didn't, but there were other names too. David Kowalski, Jennifer Kowalski, Sarah Whitmore, Amelia Torres, Lisa Zhang, all dated 2014, all with messages that made no sense, that they hadn't written, that couldn't exist." "This is wrong," Sarah said, her voice breaking. "This is all wrong. We need to get out. We need to—" A sound from behind them. Footsteps. Multiple sets. Coming from the passage they just crawled through. They looked back and saw them, Bear and David, standing side by side at the passage entrance, both with those terrible fixed smiles, both moving with that strange, too smooth gait. And behind them, barely visible in the darkness, were others. 5 more figures. The original 7. "Come see," they all said in unison, voices perfectly synchronized. "Come see how beautiful it is. Come see what we found. Come see what found us." There was only one way to go, deeper. The passage was barely 3 feet high now. They had to belly crawl, pulling themselves forward with their elbows. The ceiling scraped their backs, the walls touched their shoulders on both sides, and the voices behind them kept calling, "Come see, come see, come see." Marcus felt the passage narrowing. 2.5 feet, 2 feet. His backpack caught on the ceiling. He had to take it off, push it ahead of him, squeeze through. And then ahead, he saw something. Light. Not flashlight light. Natural light. Daylight. "There's an exit!" he shouted. "Keep going!" They crawled faster, ignoring the pain, ignoring the voices behind them. The light grew brighter. They could see the passage opening ahead, could see trees beyond it, could see sky. Marcus reached it first. He pulled himself out of the passage and he was in the first chamber, the one with the pool and the 7 backpacks. He'd crawled in a circle. They were right back where they started. The others emerged behind him, one by one, each realizing the same impossible truth. The cave had looped back on itself, or they'd gotten turned around, or space itself didn't work right in this place. "This can't be happening," Jennifer sobbed. "This can't be real." But it was real. The backpacks were still there, arranged in their circle. The pool was still perfectly black and still. And now there were 9 backpacks instead of 7. 2 new ones, expensive and modern and familiar. Bear's pack. David's pack. "No," Marcus whispered. "No, no, no." From multiple passages around the chamber they heard the voices. "Come see. It's your turn now. Come see how beautiful." The figures emerged from the passages. Bear and David and the original 7, all with those fixed smiles, all moving in that horrible synchronized way. They formed a circle around Marcus, Sarah, Amelia, Jennifer, and Lisa, and they began to walk forward, slowly, deliberately, closing the circle. Marcus looked at the pool. It was the only place left to go. The water was black and still and cold, and he had no idea how deep it was or where it went. But the alternative was those things that wore his friends' faces. "Jump," he said. They jumped. The water was ice cold, shockingly so. Marcus went under, kicked toward what he hoped was the surface. His head broke through and he gasped, treading water. The others surfaced around him, splashing, panicking. The chamber ceiling was only a few feet above the water. The pool took up most of the chamber floor, and around the edges the 9 figures stood, watching, smiling. "Swim," Marcus said. "There has to be a way out." Underwater passage. Anything. They dove. The water was so dark that even with their flashlights they couldn't see more than a few feet. Marcus felt along the bottom, searching for an opening, a tunnel, any way forward. His lungs burned. He needed air. He kicked toward the surface, broke through, gasped. One by one, the others surfaced, all except Lisa. "Lisa?" Jennifer called. "Lisa!" They waited. 10 seconds, 20, 30. She didn't come up. Amelia dove, searching. She was down for almost a minute before she surfaced, shaking her head. "I can't find her." "She's gone." They were down to 4. "The ceiling," Sarah said suddenly, pointing. "It's lower." "The water level is rising." She was right. The gap between the water and the ceiling was shrinking. In the last minute, it had dropped from 3 feet to maybe 2.5. The pool was filling, or the ceiling was lowering, or both. "We're going to drown," Jennifer said. "We're all going to drown in here." But Marcus saw something. The 9 figures around the pool. They were leaving, walking backward into their passages, disappearing into darkness. And one of the passages, the one directly across from where they'd entered, was glowing faintly. Not with flashlight light, with something else. Bioluminescence, maybe, or— "That way," Marcus said, pointing. "We swim to that passage." They swam across the pool, reaching the passage entrance. It was partially submerged, maybe 2 feet of airspace above the water. They pulled themselves into it, crawling through water-filled tunnel, heads tilted up to breathe from the narrow gap of air. The passage climbed gradually. The water level dropped. Soon they were just crawling through shallow water, then just damp stone. And the glow ahead grew brighter. They emerged into a chamber unlike any of the others. This one was natural, untouched, beautiful. Crystalline formations covered the walls, reflecting and refracting light from some unseen source. The air was warm, almost comfortable, and in the center of the chamber was a formation that looked like a throne carved from flowstone, nature's sculpture millions of years in the making. And sitting on that throne was someone they recognized. Rachel Morrison, the first name from the backpacks. She sat perfectly still, hands folded in her lap, eyes open but not blinking, that same fixed smile on her face. "Rachel?" Marcus said carefully. "Rachel Morrison?" She turned her head slowly, mechanically, to look at them. When she spoke, her voice echoed strangely, as if multiple voices were layered beneath it. "Welcome," she said. "You've come so far. You're almost home now." "We want to leave," Marcus said. "Show us the way out." "But why would you leave?" Rachel asked, her head tilting at an unnatural angle. "Don't you see how beautiful it is here? Don't you feel it calling to you? The cave has been waiting for you, for all of you. You're meant to stay." "What are you?" Sarah asked. "I'm Rachel," she said, "and I'm what Rachel became. I'm what you'll all become. The cave takes you, and it makes you better. It makes you understand. It makes you see." "See what?" Amelia demanded. Rachel's smile widened impossibly. "Everything." And then the walls began to move. If this heart-wrenching journey keeps you on edge, hit that like button and subscribe for more. They weren't walls. They were flesh. Living tissue, pulsing, breathing, surrounding them on all sides. The crystalline formations were growths, organs, structures of something vast and alive. They'd been inside it the whole time, crawling through its body, and now it was waking up. "Run!" Marcus screamed. They ran back the way they'd come, through the water-filled passage, into the chamber with the pool. But the pool was almost full now, less than a foot of air space. They dove under, swam across, emerged on the other side with barely room to breathe. The passages were all closing, flesh growing across the openings, sealing them in. Marcus grabbed at the stone, trying to find a gap, any way out. His fingers brushed something, a narrow crack, maybe 8 inches wide. "Here!" he shouted. "There's a fissure!" They squeezed into it, one at a time. The stone cut their skin, scraped their faces, but they kept moving. The fissure was natural, not part of the cave system, just a crack in the bedrock, and it angled upward. They climbed, hand over hand, wedging their bodies into the crack, inching upward. Below them, they could hear the sounds, wet, organic sounds, the thing that lived in the cave searching for them, angry that its prey was escaping. Marcus's hand broke through into open air. He pulled himself up and out, emerging into daylight so bright it hurt. He was on a hillside, surrounded by trees, with no sign of any cave entrance nearby. Sarah came next, then Amelia, then Jennifer. 4 of them, out of 7. They collapsed on the forest floor, gasping, crying, alive. "We have to report this," Marcus said when he could speak again. "We have to warn people. That thing, whatever it is—" "Who's going to believe us?" Jennifer asked. "We can barely believe it ourselves." But they tried. They hiked back to the trail, found the ranger station, told their story. The rangers listened with increasing skepticism. A living cave? Bodies that weren't bodies? Friends who disappeared? A search team was sent out. They found the old homesteader cabin. They found the shed. But behind the shed, where the cave entrance should have been, there was only solid hillside. No opening, no passage, nothing. "You were lost in the woods," the lead ranger said gently. "It happens. The stress, the fear, the darkness. Your minds played tricks on you. Your friends are still out there, probably disoriented like you were. We'll keep searching." They never found Bear, David, or Lisa. The search continued for 2 weeks before being called off due to early snowfall. 3 years passed. Marcus, Sarah, Amelia, and Jennifer tried to move on with their lives, tried to convince themselves it had been hallucinations, stress-induced psychosis, tried to forget, but they couldn't forget. October 2017. A storm rolled through North Cascades, one of the worst in decades. Lightning struck an ancient Douglas fir near the old homesteader cabin, knocked it down. The tree was massive, over 300 years old, and when it fell, its root ball pulled up tons of earth and revealed a cave entrance, wide, dark, and unmistakably real. Forest Ranger Michael Torres, Amelia's cousin, was doing damage assessment after the storm when he found it. He approached carefully, shining his flashlight into the darkness. Inside, clear in the soft earth of the cave floor, were footprints, 7 distinct sets, all heading deeper into the cave. Fresh footprints, like they'd been made yesterday. Michael followed them with his flashlight, documenting everything. The prints walked in single file, purposeful and steady. They led deeper, past the range of his light, but he could see where the cave ceiling dropped, where the passage narrowed to just 3 feet high, and that's where the last set of footprints stopped, right at the narrowest point. Size 11 boots, deep tread. The prints just ended, like the person had vanished mid-step, or like they'd been pulled into the stone itself. Michael called it in. A forensic team was dispatched. They mapped the footprints, took measurements, compared them to missing persons databases. 7 missing hikers from October 2014, Rachel Morrison, Thomas Park, James Wu, Christina Valdez, Robert Sullivan, David Kowalski, and Lisa Zhang. The prints matched perfectly, but that wasn't the strangest part. When they analyzed the cave's geology, they found something impossible. The limestone formation was ancient, millions of years old, but embedded in the rock, deep in the mineral layers, were modern objects, synthetic fabric, rubber boot soles, metal buckles, items that shouldn't exist in stone that predated humanity by epoch. It was as if the cave was both ancient and constantly present, existing in multiple times simultaneously, collecting its prey across centuries and absorbing them into its very structure. The cave entrance was sealed with concrete and steel. Warning signs were posted. The area was closed to the public indefinitely. Marcus Chen never returned to the mountains. Sarah Whitmore can't stand darkness anymore. Jennifer Kowalski changed her name and moved across the country, trying to forget her husband's face in that cave. Amelia Torres still lives in Washington, but she deletes every message her cousin sends about strange occurrences near the sealed entrance. The official report listed all 7 as victims of cave collapse, bodies unrecoverable, case closed. But Michael Torres saw something before they poured the concrete. His flashlight caught figures in the darkness, 7 of them standing perfectly still, watching. He told the crew to use triple the concrete. to seal it so nothing could ever get out. 3 months later, hikers reported hearing voices under the trail near the old homestead, singing, calling names. The sounds came from directly beneath their feet, from stone that had no caves, no passages, no possible hollow spaces. Park officials investigated, found nothing, declared it acoustic anomalies wound through rock fissures. But the hikers knew what they heard, and they knew those voices were inviting them to come see. Come see how beautiful it is down there in the dark. If this journey through survival and mystery captivates you, hit that like button and subscribe for more.